Okay, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to our last Zoom with the principal before spring break. I hope all of you are looking forward to spring break. I don't know, for us, it seems like my husband and I were talking about it. It's like we've had 2 spring breaks because our kids were off this week, which has been a little like mini vacation for us that we have not been having to yell at them about logging into their Zooms and have they done their homework. And so it's been a little break for us, and then next week we're off, so that will be great. So a couple of weeks ago at one of our Zooms with the principal, some parents had some questions about AP testing this year. And I'll be honest, I have not, like, everything's been changing so fast. I personally haven't been keeping up with all of the details. So I asked Miss Pereira to come and join us today she'll start with a brief overview of the plan and then answer all of your guys' questions about AP testing. I also want to warn you guys that my allergies are out of control this week. And so I may inadvertently sneeze. And so I apologize for that in advance if that happens, but hopefully it'll be fine. But Nancy, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Alrighty, good morning. I'll start off by showing the schedule at this time, so that might help. Okay, you have to give me access.
I just did.
So the plan really started from having to, well, AP took a while, of course, to give us their plan, but once they did, it really just helped us figure out what was the best options for our district and obviously at Piedmont Hills High School. So as a district, the plan was to take the digital testing from home, so the remote from home testing, and that really limited our availability as what we can do. So in the sense as there's, so we decided on administration too, in the event that students would be able to, if there are problems with testing, they may still have the option for administration 3. This is kind of weird though. The makeup policy has not yet been put out by AP. So how is AP going to handle students who have tech problems or are unable to access their test? That whole plan has not come out yet. But as a district, we decided on administration 2. And so you could see, and this will be posted on the webpage at our school webpage under the AP tab. But so here are the testing dates. Where it got a little tricky was that not all tests that are remote testing from home were given during option 2. So that is why some of them are under the administration 3. And actually, these are some of our big tests. It's the calculus and the physics and statistics and chemistry. So those do not have the option for administration number 2. So that is why those are our only choice was administration 3, since we are doing the at-home remote testing. Where things got a little bit more fun is for, I'm going to scroll down a bit, sorry, is for the world languages. Those tests have to be in person, and those are paper tests. So those are not, they do not have the, since their AP is running the complete tests, all parts for the second language classes, they will, they have to be paper and at school because they do not have they did not set up the capacity to administer those remotely. Last year, they took out parts of the test. This year, it's the full test. So that's why it's it's still administration 2. It's paper at school. They're all on the same day. The good news is that all of those groups testing, they're relatively small numbers. So we'll be testing in the library, except for where there's a double up with French and Chinese. The French will be in a different area. So that way there's enough space so that the students can be spread out and they're still going to have to wear their masks, and we'll follow all the guidelines that we are supposed to follow. But as far as the space concerned, the library, I think we have 20 or so kids for Spanish and another 20 for Mandarin for the Chinese, and French is like maybe a handful of students at this point. So the space is totally, it should be safe. So with that, I hope that you guys can see that. So right now, the what we're waiting on from AP is what happens when students cannot. That last year there were some tech problems, and so we're just waiting on the makeup test dates when those are available. But there'll be a process of how to file a report that there was some problem. We had to do that last year as well, and then we would go from there for how the makeup date would go.
Nancy, are we going to put these dates on our website? Or
Yeah,
are they already on there?
they are trying to be on there, but I think our site is down, but we will get those on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there was a question about can we take Physics 1 and Physics C mechanics? They seem to be scheduled at the same time. And I see that they are on 1 p.m. on, what was that, June 8th?
So there are some test conflicts, and AP, there's a report that we run, and then they suggest when that test could be done. So we have to figure that out. And but they've already figured out on their end. So I have to figure that out for that student so I can tell them.
So generally, like, that's something that we do. Like when you like go through it, like what tests the kids are taking, we look at what the conflicts are, and then tell the kid, okay, you're going to take this test on this day.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then another question, you kind of alluded to this, so you may not have an answer to this, was I understand this year students have to download an app to do the test. If the internet is interrupted, can they log back onto the app? Will they lose whatever they've been working on the page, or will they be able to continue without losing any answers they've put in?
Oh, that's a very good question. So there's a couple things that people have to, so let me just back up. That's a very specific question, and I really won't have all those answers. But what I can tell you is I'm going to put this actually in the chat, and this is stuff that the students have not been given yet. But there's a link that shows how the students should check their technology to make sure that all their devices work properly. There we go. So I just put that in the chat. So that's something worth the students doing as they get closer to testing. If they are not, I could stop share, I guess. If they're not, if they are having troubles with their devices, they can come to school and exchange for a Chromebook as well. The app is actually set up in their ARMS account, their eSide account. So there might be already an icon there for AP. But the best thing for them to do is to run their technology checks to see how everything is going. But I don't have all the answers as to what happens if the information, if the system's disconnected, will it be lost? I don't have an answer yet for that.
And then you had just mentioned, if you guys need a Chromebook, you absolutely, the kids can come and check out a Chromebook if you feel like your computer at home is not as reliable and you want to have that. I would suggest going ahead and coming and checking that out. They can actually do it today because the book room is open today during first and seventh and at lunch. We don't want kids coming during their class time because they should be in class. Or actually, no, we're on an even day because it's a weird schedule today.
Yeah.
So during tutorial, it'll be open this afternoon. It will be closed next week because we are closed next week for spring break. But when we come back from spring break, we'll be back to our normal book room hours, which Nancy put up there. It's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Yeah. But we have plenty of Chromebooks if they want a Chromebook.
And just something I wanted to add with testing, that's, I don't know if the families are aware, but AP has extended the refund policy, or the cancellation of tests. So students can cancel their exams without any penalty to receive a refund. So I'm guessing if a tech problem were to happen, or I'm not sure how they'd work that out, but if the student is unable to complete the test, then we may need to explore the refund with AP at that point. So it's usually if they haven't started the test is how they've handled it last year. Yeah. So
so you can't like start the test and be like, oh, this is too hard, I want the refund.
Yeah, they'll know. So, but yeah. So, just to be clear about that. And I've been getting a lot of emails from students who want to cancel their exams. And me personally, I'll just share, I feel like this is just a value added for the students. And I know for our students, the idea of not being successful on exam puts a lot of stress on them. So I had a really lengthy conversation with one of our AP Spanish students, and I say that, like, for me personally, like, I don't work for AP. I work with our students in the community of Piedmont Hills. So obviously I want what's best for our students. But I just think it's value added. I feel like if they've already registered, they're in the class, it's probably worth it for them to complete the test, because they may pass and they may earn college credit. And I think that's great for them in the long term. But again, everyone's different as to why they want to have their refund. And so, I mean, I don't have a student request it, they're going to get it. I just want them to be aware that, yeah, just really think about it, because once they ask for that refund and I cancel the exam, it's a done deal. There's no backsies, as they say. We're done. So, yeah, so it's kind of a complicated little line that the students are feeling right now, because they want to be successful and they want to do all these things, but there is still something to learn from, I guess, failure, right? If you didn't do well, is that the worst thing for them at this point? So
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, and the thing is, and this is certainly true this year, which is a strange year, but it's always true. With the AP exams, there's only benefit to taking the AP exam. There's not really a downside other than they're expensive. I mean, so that is a downside. They are pricey tests and you have to pay for them. And, that's something that you have to balance. If you have a kid that's taking a lot of AP classes, that definitely can add up. With as many, depending on how many tests that they're going to take. That said, like, if they do badly on the test, I have never seen a bad score in an AP exam be held against a kid.
yeah.
Like, so if they do well, yeah, there's benefits for passing the exam. But if they do poorly, everything I've seen is like, it's kind of universally acknowledged that, like, oh, they had a bad day. Like, I've had, certainly, because I used to teach AP, and I had kids that were like some of my best students, and they had a bad day and they got a 2 on the exam. But you know what? They just had a bad day. It's okay. Like, I have one, I like remember, she actually did fine on my exam, but my husband was teaching AP also, and she did really poorly on his exam, and she was a super smart student. She's fine. She's a lawyer now. She like just made a partner in her law firm because I'm Facebook friends with her. Like, a bad AP test score is not the end of the world. It's fine.
And I think too, like, it just kind of goes with goal setting, right? Like, you're seeing through something you set for yourself, and just those life skills that, we all work hard for our students to have. So that, I guess for me, that was the most important, because I hate the idea of them just being like, I'm not going to pass, so I'm going to not take it. Or some of them are just worried about the time they have to put into to study. So I get that. So anyway, that's just kind of on that note. And I actually, on that note, I'll share that AP does post videos to review, and they do have, through their AP classroom, there are study guides, and obviously their teachers are, teaching them the curriculum as they should be. So I just want to make sure that families are aware those resources are available to students as well. And also, on another note, if the students go into their AP classroom, it already shows all their test dates there. So when their actual plan is all there. So they might be able to note different things about their testing days there already. I'm not sure what they can see, because I don't have the same view. But for sure, it shows their test dates and all the changes have been made.
I mean, and hopefully this was, that you guys noticed this, with the test dates, and like Ms. Pereira said, they were out of our hands. They are much later than they normally are. Usually AP testing happens in the beginning, the first 2 weeks of May is typically when AP testing happens. This is a lot later than normal. Most of the tests actually happen before we get out of school, but there are those tests in that third administration that do happen a week after we get out of school. So our last day of school is June 3rd, and then you guys saw there's test dates on June 8th, it was June 9th and June 10th. That's out of our hands. There's not anything we can do about that. I know some of you may have summer travel plans, like there's nothing we can do about it. Like those are the test dates. We cannot change them. Thing about AP tests, that is not something that is controlled by the school, that's controlled by College Board. Those are the same test dates throughout the country. And so we are not allowed to give the test at a different time and just say, hey, let them take it early. That is something that would revoke our AP testing privileges. Like College Board would not allow us to offer AP anymore if we did something like that. So the answer is going to be a hard no. We have to follow those test dates and times. So you guys have not been putting questions in the chat. You don't have to put a question in chat. You can take yourself off mute if you have a question. This is going to be a short Zoom with the principal if you guys don't have any questions. You can actually ask questions about anything if you want. We're not limited, so.
I see. Is that directly from me? Oh, unless someone's emailing, I'll email them back.
What's the most challenge for a student in an AP test? Well, and I can kind of address this because I was the AP coordinator for years at Santa Teresa. I normally, and maybe Nancy, this is something we want to address, are the tests different this year? I would say this year the challenge is going to be the stress of like logging on and being it digital, and like that is going to be stressful for the student. In a normal year, these are very long tests, and that can be challenging for a student to pace themselves throughout the test. Our students typically don't take a 3-hour test, though a lot of the AP kids, by the time they're juniors, seniors, they've done the SAT and that sort of thing. So they are more used to that. But typically, like the challenge for a student taking the AP test is watching the clock. It is a time test. And so, a lot of the tests that we give, with the SBAC and like other tests that we give, those are untimed and they can take their time. An AP test is not like that. It's a timed test. And so they really have to watch the clock and pace themselves and make sure that they are, keeping track and, monitoring themselves. During a typical AP administration where we, the school, are administering the test, and it's a paper and pencil test and we've got them all in the room, we give them like time checks and things like that. But, they really have to monitor that, and hopefully the teachers have prepared them for that. I know, we tried, like when I was an AP teacher, that was something that we certainly tried to do, was prepare them and like teach them about the pacing, but we never had the opportunity to give them like a full practice test because, I had a 55-minute period, so I couldn't give them a full 3.5-hour practice test. What I would do is I would break it up into like 3 days in a row where we would do like multiple choice on one day. We do the one type of essay on the second day and the other type of essay on the third day, where I'd kind of mimic it, but it would be over 3 days so that they could have that pressure. So next question about the language AP test. Do they need to wear masks when taking the test? Will this cause any confusion while test speaking? Will the school send out directions and detailed location about how and where the test will be?
Yes, we will send out directions where the test will be. It's a little far ahead for us to do that since the tests are, almost right now just under 2 months away. So yeah, there will be directions for that. The microphone part, we ordered brand new microphones for the students. We already have those here, the headset with microphone. I believe they can take off their mask for that. I'm not sure. I have to check on that. But I think there was debate as to how that would work as far as the microphone for the speaking portion. So that we have to check. But the students, I mean, if you've been in our library, it is huge. So not only can the students be 6 feet apart, but they could probably be 10 feet apart. So um, that will be, space will be easy to handle.
So that's something normally that we had to do with the speaking portion for language tests, is separate the kids so they're not like on top of each other and hearing each other during that part and interfering with the recording. So we've always had to separate them out, but now especially we would separate them out even more. And so the portion that they have to speak, like the speaking portion on those tests is like what, 15 minutes of like the actual like time. The part that they're because a lot of that is eaten up by instructions and listening. The part that they're actually speaking is probably like less than 3 minutes. It's not that long that they're having to speak. So the time that they would have a mask off to speak to make sure that it's clear is going to be very minimal. And then Nancy, there was a question, when is the deadline to cancel the test if there's a time conflict for us to cancel one test?
Oh, right. So if there's a testing, just a couple things. If it's a testing conflict, we'll work out the dates for the testing conflict. The deadline, I mean, for this sounds this the deadline is right before billing, and that is sometime at the end of May. I would prefer that if a student isn't, I'm going to set the deadline a little bit beforehand, just because I think just for logistical reasons, it'll be easier to get everything handled. But truly, it could be as late after. I feel like it's like the third week of May or something they have until the date is it's unclear to me off the top of my head, but I set it for May 1st. So that way, if students know they're canceling, they could just cancel it, since I'm getting so many emails. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
But pretty much they have until right before the test. And like we said, if they've started the test, then it's too late. Finish the test. You're not going to get a refund at that point. So the next question is, what's the difference between this year and last year in the way the students will take the AP test? So last year was a super weird year where the tests were significantly shorter.
Yeah, the tests were shorter. This time they're not short. They have not shortened the tests. I think the process will be very much the same as far as digitally and how they're going to get it done. But they will do all parts of the test. So the test sessions are longer than they were last year because they have more tests to do. So that would be the most different. And for the world languages, it's again, they're doing all parts of the test. So last year they cut out the speaking parts, I believe.
Yeah, last year, if you guys remember, I mean, everything shut down in the middle of March, and then AP College Board was really scrambling to like figure out how to do the tests. And so they just made much shorter tests. It's interesting if you guys, I'm assuming you don't follow College Board in the news and like but this is actually something they've been talking about, moving to digital tests for years. And I think this is probably just sped up. Like this is where AP was going to go always, was to have the test digitally. Most of our testing that we do now is actually on the computer. Like all of our statewide testing and everything is on a computer. So that's kind of the new wave of testing, is that it's digital. When we're back, like assuming next year, which I totally am assuming next year that we are back in person full time, testing wouldn't happen at home, but it very well may still be digital next year. Who knows?
Yeah. So there's some questions about just about the difference between a paper test and the digital test. I think what we should just know, it just depends on how well students take tests, number one. And so I think our students now are really good at taking tests online because they've been doing them now for a while. Right, we've been now with distance learning for a year, so I think that will help. But it's just really just how their brain works. Like, how is it going to impact them visually or not? But the actual test itself will be the same. It's not going to be different.
So I'm trying to get through all these questions. So Teresa followed up with, I guess with her question, she was wanting to compare previous years. Previous years, it was a paper and pencil test, and there was two parts to it. They had a break in the middle where usually for your typical test, there's always a multiple choice part. And then there's like what they call free response. And so your English and social studies are an essay. In your math and science, it was like working out a problem by hand, and that sort of thing, like a long problem. So there's always multiple choice and free response. So now this is just digital. But before, the biggest difference was paper and pencil. And we had like, honestly, it's kind of alarming now with like all of the guidelines with like restrictions and how many people have room, that we used to cram like 150 kids into the small gym. And so, you know,
Something about a breaks during testing while they're testing at home.
yeah. So Michelle, I'm going to get to your question about the opening of school at the end. So don't let me forget to go back to that. How do parents need to help kids do a good job on their AP test? Make sure they get plenty of sleep. And I would say like a week before, like making sure they're on a good sleep schedule so that it's not just the night before, because the night before they might be actually kind of anxious and have a hard time sleeping. I know the night before I have anything big, I get super anxious and my sleep is really bad. So the more sleep that they have and the better sleep that they have leading up to that, the better off they are. Make sure they eat breakfast that morning so that they're not hungry and their brain's working better. Make sure that they've got, during the test, a quiet space, that, you know, if they've got siblings that are going to be running around, that nobody's bugging them, that they, you know, okay, everybody knows that, hey, this is the time that they're testing. That would be the advice I would have.
And I would say if families have Wi-Fi connectivity problems already, to maybe email me so I'm aware of that, so we could see what we need to do to support just the connectivity on that end. That will be important. And someone asked the question about how are students getting this information. The teachers are aware of information, so a lot of it is coming through their classrooms. And as far as like technology checks, I haven't sent that out to the students. AP will actually, there's a whole process that will happen closer to testing where they'll send out a trial ticket for them to try things and that kind of thing. The information I already provided you as far as how to check your devices, I would suggest doing that soon, so that way if you notice there's a problem, you could let me know right away. What I'll do next is I'll complete a form for students, and IEP already has one, but I'll add it like just a nice Google form so that way they could start looking at it. And this sounds really strange, but I kind of don't want them to look at it yet because I don't want them to get all stressed out over something they don't need to worry about so much, but just them knowing that there's a plan, I think will ease them with that type of anxiety that they may get about testing. So I see the value in it, but I know like I don't want that to distract them from what they need to do right now, which is, focus on their current classes and that kind of thing. A lot of the teachers will do practice sessions with them in class already. I know that the Spanish AP teacher is already trying to come in to do things. So there's a lot of different teachers are doing different things to help their students prepare for the exam.
Yeah. Okay. So Miranda has a question. How does the AP score affect the student's GPA? The student got a low score. Would that hurt the GPA? No, it has no correlation at all. The two are not connected at all in any way, shape, or form. And then for online tests, what are the major differences compared to paper tests in the past? Anything the students need to pay special attention to? Timing is always an issue. Like just, they should honestly be pretty familiar with working on a computer at this point. They've been doing it all year. But, like Nancy was saying, like looking and practicing on the interface. If Wi-Fi is an issue, like if Wi-Fi is an issue at your house and that's something that you're concerned about, let us know. We can, the superintendent has made it clear that like we can provide space. Like if they are going to need to come and take their AP test here, like it's still digital, they're still doing it on their own, but we can set them up like in an empty classroom and like just let us know if you are concerned like your Wi-Fi at home can be sketchy and go out. Just let us know. Like that's something that we can help out with. So I would say like just being familiar with the testing interface and like we were saying, like they can go and look at that. That's not something that they should do right before the test. They don't necessarily need to, like Nancy was saying, they don't necessarily need to do it now, but in the weeks leading up to it, they should definitely do that. That's not something you want to do like right before like you're going to take the test. For testing at home, can students leave the room to go to the restroom or get something to drink? Yes, I mean, they can do that in a normal testing situation, but the time doesn't stop. They can't pause the test. So if they go and take a 5-minute bathroom break, they've just lost 5 minutes of their testing time. So I would recommend going to the bathroom before, having, your water bottle like before, and having everything there all ready to go. But yes, they can. But like I said, you can't pause the test.
And they do have breaks set up after each little test.
Yeah.
So there's already a break after that. That won't impact the time test. So I would say bring water with you. So they're not like, hey mom, I need water or whatever the case is, but they can have those things with them at their desk. That's a good thing. When you're at home, you can just have everything there. Yeah.
And then I think you covered this nicely, the school schedule section to help the students use the app for the test. The teachers should be doing that in the class, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the students are going to be asked, I mean, I will send them information on how to do it themselves. So they should do it. I will say that when I was sending emails, like a lot of them throughout the school year about concerning AP, I didn't get very much feedback from the students. So I'm assuming they read things, but I really don't know. And I also sometimes may have CC'd the parent or guardian on an email as well to just kind of help the situation. And I'll do that again as well. So when information's coming out, I know right now the students are kind of overloaded with checking emails on their assignments. So it would be, if you get an email from me about AP, just check in with your child to ask, hey, are you all set? Are you ready to go? What do you need? That type of thing.
Yeah, I would say actually the student's teacher is probably the best resource with questions about the test. The teachers, it's funny, like teachers of AP, they want their kids to do well on the test. And so they absolutely are not going to want, their students to be confused about different features of the test and like what it's going to be like. And so that's something that they are going to make sure their students know. And so if students have questions or nervous about the test, they should definitely ask their individual teachers for the subject, because each test is a little bit different. I mean, there's some that are kind of like overall, like these are the way the tests are, but each test is a little bit unique. Question: if kids do not do well on the test, will they have the choice to cancel their scores? Will it affect the college application? Will they take the test again next year? What will happen on their record? That's a lot of questions. So yes, they can cancel their scores, but they have to do that like right after. They don't get to like wait until yeah, if like a score is issued, then you don't get to cancel it. But if they have, and I've definitely seen this, like a kid like got stomach,
Right.
poison, like got like sick during the test, like, and it was just awful, and like they want to cancel their scores. Yes, like they can. There is an option to do that. I would say generally, even if they think that it didn't go great, I would say don't cancel the score, because they may do better than they thought they would. I've had students tell me in the past, they're like, I don't know how I did. And then they end up getting a 5, like, so they may not feel great about it, but they may do better than they thought they were going to. So college applications, they don't actually really report AP scores on their college applications. They may report their scores to the college after they got accepted, because at some point, if you want to get the college credit, you have to report the scores. But the student actually gets to choose about reporting that. Like they control who, like, if they want to report that or not. So,
Yeah. So back to it's a value added. It's not
yeah,
punitive to them in any way.
yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
And can they take the test again next year? Technically they can, because they sign up for AP tests on their own. You don't actually technically have to be in the class to do it. But I'm going to be honest with you, I have never seen a student take a test again the following year and be more successful on it, because they have not been in that class all year, and it's going to have an impact. They will lose a lot of knowledge in that year. Unfortunately, that's just the way things are. So that's not typically something that we recommend, though it's their choice. Like they get to pay, you have to pay for the test. They can do that. It's just, I've never really seen somebody be successful. May I know when the AP test will be kick in? Will the sports team be affected? A student? So The times on the AP tests, Nancy showed them. We'll put them on our website, the published times for when the tests are. If a kid is in sports, hopefully like when, it's most of the tests are that last week of May. Certainly if they're testing in June, sports are over. Most of the sports have winded down by that. And so, but that's something, again, with the sleep and nutrition and just making sure they're well rested.
Yeah.
So, but there are no restroom. There are breaks during the test. We said that there are breaks during the test, and they just have to know if they're like within a like testing time, like it's multiple choice time, and they have 50 minutes for that section. The time doesn't stop, and I would assume the students would know that.
Also in their directions, right? Like they'll, I mean, I guess there's not a script read this time, but there must be something in there. Yeah, but and they're also used to that, right? Don't forget that they take tests all the time. And so they're not ever, I hate to say it, unless they have to really go, they usually don't. They stay to finish their tests. I mean, that's kind of what happens. But if they need to, they go.
During the AP test season, do students need to take care of normal schoolwork, such as homework, tests? Yeah. Yeah, they still have their other classes. So, obviously in their actual AP classes, there's not going to be stuff going, happening with that.
That their other classes.
But in their other classes, yeah. Sorry, somebody texting me.
Yeah, there's something about which can they choose which AP test to submit to the college? I feel like they select which ones they send. It's not like a report card. It's right.
I think so. I mean, the academic counselors would be the ones to know for sure. But I think they can. And again,
from it.
There's no like you do that after you've been accepted to college. Like a college is not going to revoke the acceptance because you got a 2 on an AP exam. They're not going to. So it's like, that is not something you guys should worry about.
At all, yeah.
Yeah. So if the Wi-Fi cuts off, there's trouble, like that's, AP is going to have to put out some information about what happens during the actual test.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying. If you know that your Wi-Fi is troublesome, that, like your kids on Zoom and like their Wi-Fi, just like right now, it cuts out all the time. Like, let us know so that we can arrange for your kid to come and like do their AP test at school, because our Wi-Fi is going to be steady and fine. And they could just test up here. So do we know about makeup test? We don't know anything about makeup tests.
That's going to be with the same thing with the white. There's and that they give us information in pieces. So there's a whole next rollout that will happen, and they haven't. It's not yet. So it'll probably. I guess it'll be next week, because right now they're still fixing the test sessions. Others, they're still doing that. So they do it in piecemeal to us. So I apologize that we don't have all those details yet, but they really just kind of give it to us in chunks.
So you do not need to notify the school about if they're testing. That's what Nancy does. She will notify the attendance office of like, hey, this is a test that's happening during this time, and then we'll go ahead and excuse them. So you guys don't have to worry about that, like, because we know who's testing when. We'll go ahead and take care of that. And then we have a question about athletic testing for COVID. So they just came out this week and said that outdoor sports, it's now optional for them to test. So if they are in an outdoor sport like soccer, football, cross country, tennis, sport that is played outdoors, the testing is optional. We encourage it because it's always smart, but it is optional. If it is an indoor sport, then they have to test. It's actually, they have to test within 48 hours of a game. So some indoor sports like volleyball right now has to test twice a week. When we move to the yellow tier, assuming that the county moves to the yellow tier, then indoor testing becomes optional. So it may be later in April that they don't have to test as much, but that's the current rule right now. And then I wanted to go back and see Michelle's question about the opening of school. So right now we're putting together our plan for our cohorts. So just to make it clear, like we are staying on distance learning through the end of the school year. Like our academic classes and the bell schedule is going to remain the same. Like classes are on Zoom through the end of the school year. But what we are going to start doing the week of April 19th is that we will have cohorts that are offered, and the teachers are organizing right now. So right now we're putting together our list of like, when are the cohorts going to be, who's offering them, because some teachers may qualify for an exemption, like they're older and they have an underlying health condition that they may get an exemption and not have to have a cohort. So we're putting together that right now. At the same time, we've got parents and families opting their kids in. So if you want your child to be part of a cohort, you have to opt in. I had sent out the link, the opt-in, like there's two ways to do it. Like you might have teachers that have an actual letter and they may send that to you, or you could have done that online through the survey that the district sent out. And actually, I'll go ahead and resend that, write myself a note to resend that to you guys, the opt-in survey, because they left it open so you can still do that. It was a district survey, like basically saying, yes, you're interested in a cohort. And if you said yes, it links you to this form for you to formally do the opt-in form. There is a limit of 1,000 kids to be accommodated at a time. But I could tell you, like, we have less than 400 kids that have opted in, so we have plenty of room. If you have a question, like you think you've opted your kid in and you're not sure, you can go ahead and email me. Don't do it right now. I can't look them up right now, but if you email me, I can look it up to tell you if you're good to go, if you've opted in or not. If the students get a vaccine, are they still required to test for indoor sports?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like by the time the kid gets a vaccine, because like they aren't even eligible to get a vaccine yet. I mean, 16 and older are happening April 15th. By the time they're fully vaccinated, it may be that we're in a yellow tier and it comes a moot point anyway, that they may not be required to. Nancy and I were just having this conversation because we both are fully vaccinated. But all staff members get tested once a week through Eastside, and we're like, do we still test? We do. We're still testing. But so there's a lot of
wearing our mask.
Unknowns. Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns with all of that right now. So please just remain flexible with us as we get new information and send it out, because it's just like everything, it changes every week. So hang in there.
No.
Yeah.
It's been a year, guys. It's been a year. We hear you. We're there with you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I don't actually know off the top of my head what our topic is when we come back from spring break. We've shuffled around some of the topics. I think Ms. Gunter and I need to get together and decide what we're going to talk about. But Ms. Gunter will be back with us when we return from spring break. So we won't have a Zoom with the principal next week because it'll be spring break. So our next one is going to be April 15th, which is actually the day that 16 or older are able to get vaccinated. So maybe I will have more answers for you guys about some of these questions about that then. But thank you very much for joining us. And I hope that you have a wonderful, I hope that you guys as parents are able to take a week off.
Counselors are not in person yet. No.
All right.
Yeah. Someone was listening. No. They could email the counselors though.
Yes.
Set up a Zoom meeting with them.
Yes. Okay.